see.
Welcome to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And good day. Thanks for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. You are listening to Truth for Our Time, where we help you live God's Word in today's world. We help you when the headlines hit home and living His Word. Oh, man, my phone just went off. Sorry about that. I'm going to put it on hold here. Lots of topics coming up today, full hour, and I'm honored. I am so honored. My friend and a friend of our liberty and the Constitution, former Congressman, the Honorable Bob McEven, will be joining us. At 10:15, he'll come on and discuss the Constitution, the NCAA, and their decision to pull out of North Carolina, discriminating against that state for their views, and Governor McCrory and Dan Forest, which Dan Forest has an excellent statement out, and I'll touch on that in just a few minutes. They will be coming on. And then at 10:45, in the honor of Constitution Day. Did you know when Constitution Day was? It's marked on the calendar for today, I think, for folks who have classes or work day, folks who need to celebrate during the week. But it is tomorrow, September 17th. Most people don't even realize that. I didn't realize that till probably 15, 20 years ago. I was doing a radio show, and my calendar had something on it that really irritated me. It had, here's what irritated me about it. It had like the Mexican Independence Day, and I thought, well, that's unique. That's nice. I don't mind knowing that. But it had Constitution Day, but it had nothing about America's Constitution Day, which I knew that date. And so I was trying to find that date on there, and it was not mentioned. We remember last week during the 9/11 show, the memorial show that we did, and I again thank Bob Montserrat for coming on and sharing with us. And I don't know if we talked about it on air during this show. We talked about it on a couple other shows that we did last week. When he walked into that St. Paul church to help, remember he was there with the mortuary squad, the federal mortuary squad that goes in and helps test and identify folks after a tragedy. He said when he walked in, there was just a sweet spirit of peace. It was just amazing to him, the spirit of peace that was in that building. And he talked to others who felt it, the Holy Spirit's presence as well. Remember, that building was key in the founding of this nation. That's where George Washington and others went to pray over this nation and ordain this nation to a covenant and under God's protection and direction. So just want to share that with you. But the reason I bring that up is Patriot Day is the only thing listed on the calendar, and it really, being patriot is absolutely great. I hope I would qualify as a patriot, but Patriot Day can mean anything. Wear red, white, and blue to work. In fact, President Obama tried to lift up 9/11 as a day to care about your neighbors, be civically minded, give a charity. That's all great too, and yes, you should, but it's so much more than dropping off clothes at Goodwill or stopping by your local charity. It's 9/11. We lost some 3,000 people that day in terrorist attacks above the U.S. soil. We also have since lost 4 more Americans who were patriots in the Benghazi attacks on 9/11. And so to me, to say Patriot Day is such an underrepresentation of what 9/11 is. And for those folks who will never go read the proclamation by our congressional members who may be well-intended in calling it Patriot Day, they'll never hear the truth about it. And so to me, it should say, just as your calendars say on December 7th for Pearl Harbor, in remembrance of. It should say in remembrance of 9/11 attacks. It should say in remembrance of the Twin Towers attack, the Pennsylvania attack, the Pentagon attack, the Benghazi attack. I know it's getting full. That tells us quite a bit as well, that we are in such a state that we are an easy target or that others feel okay attacking us. That says quite a bit as well. All right, so today we are going to be talking about McCrory, Governor McCrory, who I was very pleased to meet at the Center for National Policy's dinner in July in D.C., and that is Congressman Bob McEwen is the executive director of that, and just did such an excellent job with that evening, along with Tony Perkins, who I think was serving as the president. And they were honoring Governor McCrory, so I had the ability to get to hear his heart a little bit, and I very much appreciated it. Dan Forrest has also been someone who I have just so appreciated with his views on Common Core. He did a video in the Battle of Common Core when he was seeking information, and it was absolutely incredible and just a perfect statement. And here, Lieutenant Governor has spoken out again, and I just want to share your statements. Remember what we're dealing with here. I think the NBA has already pulled their games, which I just don't understand. And frankly, unless they're going to allow transgender folks on their team, and me, what about me? I identify. What if I want to identify as a 7'4" basketball player? Does that force them to allow me on their team? And if they don't, aren't they discriminatory just the same? The hypocrisy here is just swirling, I think. So the NCAA has now become the latest sports organization to bully the state of North Carolina and to use this issue as a political hammer. The HB2 was passed protecting, and we always say protecting young women and girls in the restroom, and I'm going to show you something in a minute. It's not just young world. We're all at risk here, and I'll come back to that. Goose, if I forget that, you remind me about 10 after. Don't let me forget to come back to that the girls aren't the only ones at risk in the bathrooms with these policies. And remember, the Fairfield School, we broke that news on this show a couple months, May, when that first was implemented. Kids in Fairfield High School right here in Iowa are afraid to use their locker rooms and their bathrooms. They're waiting till lunch and after school to run across to businesses and use those restrooms because kids are just popping into the locker rooms just because they can. And people no longer feel safe. So here's Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest's statement, and it's an epic response as noted by charismanews.com. The NCAA's action sends a message to every female athlete, female fan attending their events that the privacy and security in a bathroom, shower, or locker room isn't worth the price of a ticket to the ball game. We've seen the NCAA's attitude toward women before when they stood by and did nothing during the rapes at Baylor. For years, we've seen the NBA turn a blind eye toward women victims of domestic abuse at the hands of their star players. Why should we be surprised now at the NCAA continuing this pattern of discrimination and degradation of women? The line has now been drawn in the sand, first by Hollywood, now by the NBA, and now it's the NCAA. Either accept their progressive sexual agenda or pay the price. North Carolina will not play that game. We value our women too much to put a price tag on their heads. Terrific response by Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest. And I'm asking you to stand with them, to do what you can to send them a note. Let them know that you stand with them. David Lane from Pastors and Pews, that's a terrific organization. He's having meetings across the nation, training up pastors as to how to be more effective in their culture. Remember, that's what made America great, were many of our pastors in the Revolutionary era, standing up not just for culture, but physically in battle. Right now, we can do it without bloodshed, but men and women, it is your time to stand up and fight these battles. And he is asking people to call 919-814-2000, 919-814-2000. If you ever listen to the show, you know you should always have a pencil handy and a piece of paper, because we'll always give you great information. I've got more coming, so hang on. So 919-814-2000. And then there is kind of a lengthy contact, but if you just look up the governor.nc.gov, governor.nc.gov, and then /contact, /email-governor, or if you just go to the website, I'm sure it will show you how to email. And I'm asking you, know that the other side is always more active, unfortunately, than we are as Christians, as conservatives, as those people who are busy earning their livings, trying to keep their families going. We need to be as active. We need to step up our activity. Call, email, and give your support to the state of North Carolina. The Republican Party, I'm pleased to say, I hear is standing very tall with them as well. Now I want to come back to what I was going to mention. It's not just women. When I posted today that I was going to discuss this on my show, I was stunned at the quick response. Listen to this. Kinnick Stadium, University of Iowa, right here in the Midwest. Walked into a men's restroom. This is one of my comments that I received on my Facebook page. I won't give his name just out of courtesy. Walked into the men's room at Kinnick Stadium 3 weeks ago during a concert. At least half a dozen college-aged girls strolled in and stood in line in the stalls while just watching the open urinals. Wonder how many men did the same in the women's room. Guessing not many, or we'd have heard about it. Decency and common sense, the victims of this stupid movement. Boy, I couldn't say it much better. Decency and common sense, the victims of this stupid movement. Think that through. We've talked about the safety of young girls being at risk because now businesses, employers cannot ask someone to leave the room without the restroom where they shouldn't be without the risk of this discrimination, foolishness being thrown at them. Listen, it's not discriminatory to tell someone to use the restroom that fits their biological gender. That is not discriminatory whether they identify with anything else. And how was it happening before this? That people were probably using the restroom that they were identifying as, and we just didn't even notice it. But this has made a whole nother kettle of fish, a whole nother issue and a whole nother problem. And so we've talked about young girls being an issue as safety. But now you've got young boys. If I were a dad, can you imagine if you were a dad and you had your 13, your 12-year-old, your 8-year-old, you just take them to the restroom and they're using the urinal when college girls walk in and gawk? That's an assault. That's absolutely an assault. And until some of these folks start pressing charges, we're not going to hear about it. But that's exactly what needs to happen. Unfortunately, because of foolish laws like this, would there have been here's the hypocrisy when you don't have a plumb line of truth. On what side can you find protection? Would the girls have had protection for being in that bathroom, or would the young man have had protection for the assault? Because if they in any other way would have seen this young man, it would have been an assault. I guarantee it. Now, there are laws in certain states where you can't take pictures. We just saw the one where the young lady put the Playboy, former Playboy model or whoever she is, took a photo of an older lady in the gym, and my hat's off to the older lady in the gym, and put it out on Twitter. And they said there are expectations in certain rooms of privacy. You can't take photos, and some states have laws against such. Wouldn't the restroom be something similar? Wouldn't it just be one of those rooms, and whether it's a photo or just your protection and your safety and your security and your sanity, shouldn't that be okay? We're going to be talking more about the NCAA, the Constitution Day, and the Honorable Bob McEwen will be joining me, and I just can't tell you how much I respect this individual. The hats that he wears, the wisdom that he has, always can speak on any subject, any situation, and give us great information. And so he will be here. Let me just tell you, he will be here. The Iowa Renewal Project will be here September 22nd and 23rd. This is for pastors, and you would be given a complimentary meal and lodging. They just want to encourage you, equip you, and empower you in the very important role that you do. They also have an Issachar training in teaching pastors or those believers who are wanting to run for office, is why that is such a great idea. So that's the 22nd and the 23rd at Embassy Suites, 101 East Locust Street, 101 East Locust Street, Des Moines. Now, to RSVP, you do need to RSVP, obviously, when they have meals and rooms for you. 800-921-1928. 800-921-1928. And RSVP by the 19th. So the 17th is Saturday, so Monday is your last day. So if you hear this Sunday at 99.3 FM at noon, get to your pastor, let him know about this. They need to attend the Iowa Renewal Project. You can also go to the Eventbrite, iowarenewalproject.eventbrite.com, or the phone number 800-921-1928. Speakers are going to be not only the wonderful Bob McEwen, and you will so enjoy him, and you will meet his beautiful, lovely wife. Just a gem. But you will also get to hear Newt Gingrich, someone we all enjoy getting to hear. Oh, that's my music. So let me tell you quick who else. David Brody, E.W. Jackson, Jason Taylor, Fred Lowry, Ken Graves, Bill Federer. All tremendous speakers. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back with Congressman Bob McEwen. Stay tuned. Truth for Our Time, 99.3 FM and webcast1live.com. Helping you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi. My name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I am Tamara Scott. We appreciate you tuning in for Truth for Our Time as we help you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home. And as I told you at the top of the hour, it is Constitution Day tomorrow. Did you know that? We all celebrate July 4th. We get that. We get Independence Day. I don't know those. If you ask folks what document we are celebrating, if they could tell you. You know, you see those on the street interviews, and I fear to say that folks would understand it was a declaration, which really wasn't signed on July 4th, but near there, and that's the holiday that we do celebrate it. And I am pretty confident that most folks don't even realize that tomorrow, September 17th, is the Constitution, the day we celebrate the signing of the Constitution, the ratifying of the Constitution. And so who better to join me? As I just told you, the Iowa Renewal Project is coming to Iowa because they have renewal projects all over the country, so forgive me for being redundant, but the renewal project is coming to Iowa September 22nd, 23rd at the Embassy Suites. You do need to have an RSVP. Pastors, there's complimentary lodging, your room, your meals, which are good meals, let me tell you, and the music is always very good, and the speakers are tremendous. Newt Gingrich is the special appearance that they're talking about right now, former Speaker of the House. But as I told you earlier, Honorable Bob McEwen, you will want to hear him. He will have CDs available. You need to buy those and listen to those. DVDs, possibly. Bill Feder will also be joining Ken Graves, Fred Lowry, Jason Taylor, E.W. Jackson, David Brody, and it is a time of learning. 800-921-1928, 800-921-1928, or you may go on to the Iowa Renewal Project, iowarenewalproject.eventbrite.com. Get that RSVP in by the close of business on Monday. Let them know and talk to your pastor about it. Your pastor may not know. Make sure they know this is available. They will come out equipped, empowered, and ready to face, one, just the hardship of being a pastor, but two, to making a difference in their culture, which is their job. So I am so honored today. On the phone line with me I am honored to have the Honorable Bob McEwen. Bob, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, Tamara, anytime. So good to hear your voice.
So for our listeners, he served as a congressional member in 6 terms, I believe, for Ohio's 6th district. And amid the other things that you did, you were served on the House Select Permanent Committee on Intelligence, and the other committee, which was over all the laws, that would be all the bills. What committee was that name?
The Rules Committee, and it is not inappropriate that we explain how this works, and that is that there are committees in the Congress, there's 13 of them, that are authorizing committees. That is, you give the authority to do something. And so you have the Armed Services Committee that says there shall be an Army and a Navy, and this will be the end strength and the number of ships that we'll purchase or planes, etc. And that then has subcommittees and full committees, and it goes to the Rules Committee. Now, the Rules Committee controls every bill that comes to the floor, and it's only made up of 13 members, and it writes a rule for each bill. It says the House shall meet on April 2nd at 2:15, consider H.R. 5699. There shall be one amendment sponsored by the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. So-and-so. And so everything that's done in the House is done according to the rules. In the Senate, you can just stand up spontaneously and make any amendment that you want. You can't do that in the House. So the Rules Committee controls every bill, whether or not it comes to the floor or not, and the circumstances that it comes to the bill. So it's kind of the top of the pyramid and is kind of fun. But then once all of that is passed, then you have the authorization to do something. You have the authority for the agriculture program to go forward next year, but you then need the money. And so then you take that ticket and go back to the Appropriations Committee. And the Appropriations Committee appropriates the money. And so maybe the Armed Services Committee said, we need a new aircraft carrier next year. We only have 12, and they're always being moved out of inventory. And so we want to build one over the next 4 years. And the Appropriations Committee might say, well, we don't think we have the money for that. We're not going to do it. And so the Appropriations Committee is kind of more powerful than the others. But then at the top of the pyramid is the Rules Committee that rewrites every bill that comes to them. They have jurisdiction or authority over all the bills. And so that's important for people to understand, because that's a safety valve that we have access to. When we hear a bill pass the committee, we know where to go to try to fix it. So.
And we need all the safety valves we can get. And so, folks, right there, you can hear the instruction and the information that you can get from Bob McEwen is so helpful. And Bob, I just want to commend you. You have so much knowledge. You've had so many experiences, but never do you ever talk above people's heads. You bring it down and I don't mean bring it down in an offensive way to anybody out there, but you help us all grasp it.
Thank you.
Yes, and I so appreciate that about you. And I also want folks to know you're the executive director of the Center for National Policy, which is an incredible organization. I was blessed to get to be with you at your dinner in Cleveland. And I have to say again, the folks that were there, Bob, are amazing, incredible acts of force themselves in changing our culture, leaders of organizations, and everyone there was so friendly.
Well, they know and love the Lord, and so therefore they have a world view. And it was in the 1980 campaign when Ronald Reagan chose George Bush as his running mate. George Bush was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and all these organizations that the left has had for many, many years, set up by the Rockefellers or others. And so they asked him, why he belonged to those, and he said, Well, because the conservatives don't have anything like that. And Tim LaHaye took that to heart. And so in 1981, when Ronald Reagan became president and the conservatives were taking positions of leadership in Washington, he said, why don't we have a Council on Foreign Relations that's made up of Bible-believing, defense-committed, Judeo-Christian conservative economics, and people that want to control the growth of government, protect our pocketbook from excessive taxes, and defend America. And so his inspiration got a handful of businessmen together, and they formed the Council on Foreign Relations, or the Council for National Policy, and it has grown since that time. And the reason I mention all that is that we know that Tim just passed away last month, and his vision made it possible, and it's considered, the New York Times calls it the 400 best connected conservatives in America. And so we meet 3 times a year, and we, of course, invite guests for the purpose of bringing in the experts. I remember when we were fighting the communists in Central America. That's where we first met Ollie North and the people that are always on the front line of what's happening. We had all of the leaders of the Thatcher government when she was attempting to turn that nation from solid socialism to bring it back to the 4th largest economy in the world. And so it's an educational thing that we're delighted that you could come, and everybody that has an interest in this can apply to come as a guest, because it's the place where we believe that which made America unique in the world can and should be preserved.
Thank you so much for that. And so, on that line, what did make America so unique? We're celebrating Constitution Day tomorrow. Bob, what is it about our Constitution? And I'll just give you a little brief as well. In this next segment that we're going to have in the remaining time till 10:45, I also want to hit the NCAA and their punishment to North Carolina. Is it constitutional? How can they get by with that? So take us through what sets us apart as a nation, and what have we forgotten that we need to remember?
Well, the government is based upon only 2 ideas, and just as our lives are based on one of 2 ideas. Either you believe that man is the center of the universe, he got here on his own, and he decides the standard of right or wrong, or you believe that there is a God, and that God made man, and that God has a standard of right and wrong. Now, that is critical, because as Thomas Jefferson has inscribed on his memorial, it says, the God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time. So for those who want liberty, they have to have an appreciation for life, but only if there is the God. So as you back up, all 3 of them are intertwined. When you do away with God, then there's no protection for life. And when there's no protection for life, there's no protection for liberty. And so that is the fork in the road. And America set the example for the rest of the world. At the same time that they were writing the Constitution, they were having a revolution in France, and they didn't need the God part. And so for us, we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They had skipped the life part and just liberty, equality, and fraternity or group. So when you do away with God, you do away with life. And then they had liberty. Well, where did liberty come from? It came from fraternity or the group. And with the group, there's no protection for life. And so there was this rampant killing where they put people on their heads on pikes up and down the streets of Paris. And even Pierre de Lafayette had to escape for his life. And, of course, as you know, they beheaded Maria Theresa, the queen, and all that sort of thing. And so our founders didn't want that to happen. And so while they were looking across the ocean, seeing that happening in 1787, they formed a constitution that was based not on the group, not on the fraternity, not on the skin color or any other group that you want to have, but based upon that God made man who gave us life and liberty. And from that fight, you have it all the time. You had a political party that for 100 years wanted to maintain slavery, the Liberty Party. And so finally the Republican Party and Abraham Lincoln fought a war to end it. and changed the Constitution. And made it in the Constitution you can't do that. And so then now they've gone off and they're taking life. And they're taking innocent life. And so the fight that once you know where a person stands on God, you have a 90% certainty of where he stands on life. Once you stand on life, 100% certainty is of where they stand on liberty. So what is the uniqueness of our Constitution? Our Constitution said that because God made you, that you have rights. And they came from, not the government, they came from God. And they were given to you, and you, we the people, loan power to government. And that is unique in the world. Every other government in the world gives, the Constitution gives power to the government, and it parcels out rights or benefits to the people. That's what made this, in less than 200 years, create more wealth than the rest of the world combined throughout all recorded history. Made it the place that invented the light bulb and the telegraph and the telephone, the global positioning system, the internet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what made America special.
That's what I appreciate, Bob. You can just take us through some of those things as we are so down right now. Folks are so cynical. They're jaded. They're angry. They're fed up. And they have a right to be. But you just mentioned just a few of the things that have set us apart. And so what would you remind folks as we go into this election sequence? We've got about a minute coming back from our till our next break. But in this closing of this segment, what would you remind people at this election?
Well, we have those that want to change America. They want to fundamentally change America. And they want to give people rights based upon, and you listen to them, based upon their sexual activity or their gender or their race. And God doesn't care. He focuses on the heart, and all of us are equal in His sight. So, therefore, when we vote, most important, the way to find in a shorthand whose team you're on, ask the person about life. Right. Anyone who will take innocent life will also take your liberty.
Absolutely.
And all you need to know about, for any race, I don't care, city council, you will know how a person views his country and our future based upon that question of protecting innocent life.
Honorable Bob McEwen is my guest, and he'll be with me when we come back from this segment. We'll be talking more about this and the NCAA and the Governor McCrory situation. Stay tuned. Truth for Our Time, 99.3 FM.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And Bob McEwen is my guest, the Honorable Bob McEwen. Bob, as always, so willing to serve and helpful, that sacrificial heart. But I know you've got other things you need to go do, and you've got a meeting waiting. I had talked to you. I'd ask you about the NCAA. And I know you had Governor McCrory at the dinner in Cleveland. Your thoughts on what's happening right now?
Well, we've learned about Saul Alinsky and his whole principle of rules for radicals and how they go about changing America. His goal is to destroy America. He was a communist. And Hillary Clinton wrote her thesis and worked with him when she was at Wellesley. Barack Obama taught courses in South Chicago on how you organize communities in order to do things, so that he has these people that they could do sit-ins and shut down banks and if they claimed that they weren't making the loans that they wanted to do. And and they have these committee organizers, often funded by Soros, and then they have people on call that they can have a demonstration at the drop of a hat. And so what has happened is that they want to change American culture so that the uniqueness between a male and a female will be blurred, and that you cannot tell a child that he is a boy or he is a girl. Because if you can't tell a child he's a boy, then he can never be a man. And so if you want to change the nature of an individual, then you have to begin at young and begin in the schools. And so Barack Obama, and for those who remember our friends who voted 4 years ago to make him president of the United States, Barack Obama gave an instruction to the Department of Education that they were to make all of the locker rooms available to a male or female who chose on that day to say that they felt a particular way, notwithstanding their physical characteristics. Any physician or any oncologist can take a drop of blood and tell you whether or not this drop of blood came from a male or a female. This is not something that you wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and decide each day. This is something that was ordained at birth. And so what they wanted to open these girls' locker rooms up to people, and so to smear them so that you couldn't have male and female. Well, their acolytes, part of the Saul Alinsky Rules for Radical Leftist group, began to implement that, and the city of Charlotte passed an ordinance to do it for every business as well. Not only the schools, the people voted for Obama and Hillary are implementing, but also make businesses do it. And businesses didn't want to do that. And so the state legislature in North Carolina, as other states were considering as well, to pass a law to say you don't have to do that. If you want to have a men's bathroom, you can have a men's bathroom. Well, the head of this coalition, that they have these community organizers, the ones that eventually landed even in the Oval Office of the White House. The organizers came down and they told him that they were going to annihilate him. They told the governor of North Carolina, we are going to make you the point, and we are going to utterly annihilate you. And so with that, they began to go to push all of the buttons where they have power. And so they got the NFL to say that they didn't want to have their football game there. And then they got the NBA last week to withdraw 7 of their basketball games. And then they had Hillary come in, as you saw last week, and she said, because of your racist, bigoted governor, and they're making him the focal point. And this is what the Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky, this is what he does. Number one is you pick your victim, then you isolate the victim so that people begin to move away from him, and then you kill him and make him the example. And that's exactly what they tried to do to Mike Pence with his religious liberty bill in Indiana. But this one, they are out to destroy Pat McCrory over this issue, and that's why every day you hear a new announcement of some left-wing human relations board at some company that says we're not going to hold a conference there or we're not going to do something in order to, between now and 53 days from now, destroy that governor and make him an example for the rest of the nation. So if anyone has any contribution they ever wanted to make in their lifetime, anyone they wanted to pray for, you'd want to stand with Pat McCrory in this fight, and hopefully he doesn't buckle between now and November, because if he buckles, they'll still stomp him anyway.
Yes, they will.
And so he needs to stand strong. He needs encouragement at this time. The Council for National Policy that we just discussed is going to announce tomorrow that we are bringing, on Monday, that we are bringing our convention there in 2018 as an expression of support for natural, just natural, where these folks take over. As you know, they have open-air toilets in San Francisco. And you might have seen where people were complaining because they had this open-air area where these men urinate, and it was right by the bus station, and people getting off the bus had to watch these men urinate there. This is what happens when man, what were the three steps we talked about? God, life, liberty. When man forgets God, then there's a lack of respect for life. They don't even know we're male or female. And then they tell you, you lose your liberty. They tell you, you're going to run a business, here's what you're going to do. You've lost your liberty. And so the easiest way, just ask them where they stand on God or liberty, or God or life, and you'll know where they stand on liberty. And that's the battle that's going on this time, at this moment, never more critical in our nation, and we must win this presidential election. If Hillary and those folks continue this road, the question is whether or not there's enough left to sweep up already. I promise you, when she finishes off these judges, more than 60% of all the federal judges have been appointed by Obama. When she makes it to 100%, America that we have known will long be gone. And you and I must make sure that Iowa and Ohio do what's right for our country.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for your time. I don't want to keep you another minute because I know you have that meeting waiting, but I thank you so much.
Nothing I would rather do than be with you, so thank you very much.
You are so kind. Folks,
all the best.
Congressman Bob, I appreciate it, and just same to you, and I'll look forward to seeing you and your beautiful wife, Liz, next week.
Great.
Folks, that was Congressman Bob McEwen. You can find him at bobmcewen.com. You can look information about him there and other information as far as his DVDs and CDs where you can learn, and as well as the CFNP, Council for National Policy. You heard his warning to us, and I can't tell you enough. If Hillary Clinton becomes the president and appoints the judges, as he said, I don't know that we will see the return of America. I don't know if we'll get a chance in the next half a decade. It will take at least 50 years to get those courts back. And without an outright miracle and mercy of God, which, as many of you know, we really don't deserve, I don't know how we'd ever get the chance to come back. People say, well, in the next 4 years, the next 8 years, I don't think it will be that simple. And you can see the vengeance in which Bob McEwen was talking about, where they've come after Governor Pat McCrory in North Carolina. And again, I'm going to have to see if I can find a constitutional scholar. We'll have to call Herb Titus possibly, or Cindy Dunbar with Liberty, and see if somebody can talk to us. What is the right constitutionally? How can they do this against a state? And I don't know why we're not seeing more pushback on this when it's an issue that these progressives they say, well, the state, this is their state rule. This is their state law. We can't interfere. But then we all know the overreaching, aggressive, intrusive acts of federal government on education, the Common Core, on all these other situations, even changing your speed limits and changing your alcohol levels in your states. So they certainly do when they like to, and you're seeing it right now. I believe I've heard that Obama is suing McCrory over this situation, which, again, constitutionally, I want somebody to tell me where that gives them the ability to do that. I'm just going to read you quickly. Jeremiah 18, Verse 7, if at any time I announce that a nation or a kingdom is to be uprooted, torn down, and destroyed, verse 8, and if that nation I warned repents of its evil, then I will relent and not inflict on it the disaster I had planned. Verse 9, if at any time I announce that a nation or kingdom is to be built up and planted, and 10, and if it does evil in my sight and does not obey me, then I will reconsider the good I had intended to do for it. It's pretty clear right there, folks. I get some of you have concerns about the election. Listen, God used imperfect people all throughout the Bible. Moses, David, all of them. He called imperfect people to be the apostles. Even Peter, who I'll build on this rock will build my church. And then Jesus heard him say, get behind me, Satan. Peter had his own issues. And even then, God used apostles. I hope we don't pick Peter apart and end up with Judas in this election. Be very careful. Be right back after these messages with Professor Kevin Portteus from Hillsdale.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common, everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And thanks for staying tuned. I am Tamara Scott. You are listening to Truth for Our Time as we help you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home. And boy, there's some interesting headlines hitting home right now. As we told you, it is Constitution Day. And joining me is Dr. Kevin Portteus from Hillsdale College. You've heard me talk about them before. Appreciate what they're doing. They have the online course, Constitution 101, and yes, you can take it free of charge. You don't have to be a scholar, but there's no reason you can't know a little bit more than we do so that we can fight back against those who want to undo all the things our founding fathers tried to put in place and set in place for us. And so, Dr. Portteus, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on today.
I appreciate you taking time out between classes. And I love some of the things I've just quickly read about you, and hopefully we can have you back another time to talk about many other issues that really are constitutional issues. The EpiPen, the corruption there, we'll have to have you talk about that as we deal with pharmaceutical a lot on this show as well.
Sure.
But you also talk about the Constitution, has not the power to diminish or modify executive authority. And one of my favorite quotes I just pulled off of Twitter, we're supposed to have the consent of the governed, but it has been replaced by the rule of expertise.
Yes. No, I think that's an important thing for people to understand. I think a lot of, when I go to talk to people and talk to groups about how our system works today and how that can be related to the Constitution, I think a lot of people still, for all of their rightful concern about government getting bigger and doing things that it ought not to do, I think people don't really understand the way the system operates. They still tend to have kind of a high school civics understanding of the way our politics operates.
And let's face it, most of us slept through high school civics.
Well, I can't be responsible for that. But
So most of us missed it, which is why I'm so thankful that now that we've gotten old enough to realize we really wish we would have paid attention. You all have the Constitution course that is available to our listeners and our viewers, and it's Constitution 101, Hillsdale College. And it is free of charge.
Yes, it is, and it's something that we do as a kind of civic outreach program. It's not a formal college course. You don't get college credit, but it is an opportunity to kind of go back and get a little flavor for what we're doing here and what we're trying to share with our students.
And I have a beautiful paperback book that I think I might have ordered along with the course that has just about everything in there I possibly could need. Discourses concerning government. I think does it have all the Federalist Papers in it?
This is the Constitution reader that we've put together.
Yes.
It does not. It has many essays of the Federalist, and we often will ask our students to obtain a copy of the Federalist as they get to more advanced levels to get into some of the other things. But it's got many of the most important ones in there that someone would need to start with.
And of course, one of the things that surprised me was that Roosevelt. Not Teddy, Franklin had rewritten his own Bill of Rights, trying to give people housing, etc. I did not know that before I took your course. So you can comment on that if you wish, but I want you to also tell us, what have we forgotten? What do we not know that would probably be most critical for us to know, would change us?
Well, as far as the FDR thing goes, it's hard for me to say exactly what one thing, but as far as the FDR thing goes, it's really interesting because FDR was really good at talking in the language of the American founding, of the Declaration and so on, but infusing it with new meaning. Infusing it with meaning that he thought was appropriate to meet the needs of the time, the needs of mass industrialized society and corporate capitalism. And so he said, yeah, political rights, those are great, freedom of speech and freedom of the press, but in a modern society, that's not enough. And just like you needed political freedom, we need economic freedom too. And it's not the government that's the problem when it comes to economic freedom. Government's actually the solution, because you have a democratic society, the people control the government, and the government is the one thing that the people have that can rein in the heads of the large corporations and sort of bring them to heel. As far as the larger question, I mean, what is the one thing that we've gotten away from? I think if I had to just throw it out on a limb, I'd say the one thing that we've gotten away from is an understanding of the relationship between law and Constitution and our first principles and the idea of nature and what the Declaration calls the laws of nature and of nature's God. But that's the source of our rights, and that's how we know what good government looks like.
Very good. Because once we realize, once we move away from that, my earlier guest, Congressman Bob McEwen, we were just talking about the NCAA and all that's happening in North Carolina, and I, in the first part of this program, said when you have no plumb line, when you have nothing to base on truth, then it seems that there's just hypocrisy swirling. We don't have any stability. And
right.
I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, I mean, essentially you've got a situation where freedom and rights, which are all in the abstract good concepts, equality, all of those things in the minds of people like Jefferson, Madison, Hamilton, Washington, those things were all bounded by human nature and the realities of human nature, and so that imposed certain things on us. It meant that rights had limits, they had responsibilities, all built into them. And now we're kind of in a situation where freedom is in a sense defined by the arbitrary will of the individual. That is to say, I can simply define myself as something other than what I am. I could define myself as a woman, for instance, and that kind of freedom that we adhere to today would say, yeah, that's right. I have absolute control over my identity and things like that. And the original understanding was, no, that's not the case. You're bounded by nature. By nature, I have certain characteristics that mean I can never be anything other than what I am.
And so
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, I can do anything I want to myself, but I can never change the fact, for instance, that I'm a man.
And so we know in our Declaration of Independence, we do talk about God's laws, nature's laws. When people say, but it's not in the Constitution, what is your response to that?
Well, as far as the Declaration not being part of the Constitution and natural law not being formally in there, I think it's important to understand the relationship between principles and Constitution the way that Abraham Lincoln did. He made reference to the 25th chapter of Proverbs, and he said that the Declaration and its principle of liberty to all is like an apple of gold. And then the Constitution is the frame, the picture subsequently framed around it. And the purpose of the Constitution, he said, was to adorn and preserve the principle. We have to understand why the Constitution was written, what they intended it to do. In other words, it was built for a purpose, just like everything else we build, and we need to understand what that purpose is.
We are quickly running out of time. Anything that you want or that you can say to our viewers and our listeners out there, they're jaded, they're cynical, they're fed up, they're concerned, they're fearful. What can we do as a people? It is we the people. I
think that more than anything else, your listeners, I think, are going to be a lot like the kinds of people I talk to when I address civic groups and friends of our college and so on. And I would suggest to them that there are no easy fixes. Conservatives and constitutionalists are always looking for what amounts to a light switch. We're going to have an Article 5 convention or balanced budgets or nullification, and none of those, I think, are successful because they don't solve the fundamental problem, and the fundamental problem is us, we the people. That is to say, we have ultimately the government that we've created over the course of more than a century. The solution is in civic education, changing the way we think about what government ought to do.
Will you come back another time?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much. Kevin Portteus, Hillsdale College, professor of politics. We are out of time. I do hope to have him back. You have been given great information this show. Be encouraged, and as always, never be complacent.